Hi, I'm Lisa Dunn, STEM Research Librarian and Head of Special Collections and Archives at the Colorado School of Mines Library. And this presentation is on recording oral history for the Women of Mines Oral History Project. So the project, the facilitator and narrator want to think like a filmmaker, so this should be kind of fun. You want to control your process, you want to do your preparation in advance, so know your equipment, know Zoom. Your primary focus is on the narrative. The secondary focus is on the equipment. So that's how we want this to be. So that's why we want you to be familiar with your equipment and have all the settings set in advance and absolutely have fun with this. So sound first. Think like a microphone. You want a quiet indoor space. You want to silence all devices. You want to remove background noise if possible, and we know that's not always possible, but keep things as quiet as you can. For example, if you've got a chair that squeaks, if you're touching something or rustling papers, if your clothing is brushing against something, those are things you want to try to minimize. And again, we do know that it's not possible in many cases to keep things completely quiet. If you can, eliminate noise from family, pets, and outdoors. It's a good idea to close windows, to make sure pets are somewhere else and comfortable, and make sure your family is aware that you're recording. You do want to do a sound check. Once you hook up with the participant, you want to do a range of participants' voices to make sure that everyone's audible, and you want to have a signal for if the audio cuts out or breaks. So visual, you want to think like a camera. The narrator needs to be in the frame. They're the focus of this. So the face and upper torso should comprise about 2/3 of the frame, and the head near the top of the frame, but don't cut it off. So please don't cut anybody's heads off. We all have used Zoom probably more than we need to maybe at this point for the unfortunate circumstances, but we probably have all definitely seen presentations where people are cut off the frame. You want to avoid things like rolling or rocking chairs, and try to keep other people out of the frame unless they're part of the narrative. Lighting, you want to avoid hot spots and avoid direct natural light if you can. Again, many of us have used Zoom, and if you have, you may be aware of the Witness Protection Program effect where someone is backlit. So you've got a brightly lit window, and then you've got somebody in silhouette, and you can barely make out their expressions. And we want to avoid things like that. Avoid sources of direct light that are in the frame. And background, you want it simple and uncluttered if possible, but that's not always possible. And it may be that if you're in front of a bookcase of books or artifacts or memorabilia, that's okay, that's perfectly fine. But narrators want to make sure that these are things that they are okay with other people seeing, because this isn't going to be a recording for the public. And the background, though, shouldn't distract from the narrator. The narrator should be the focus. So the transcription, think like software. So how will the transcript look? The narrator is the transcript's focus. And so you want to avoid things like, I'm very guilty of this. Every utterance shows up in transcription software. It's not always, again, possible to avoid those. That's okay if you happen to do something like that. And for the facilitator, you definitely want to mute yourself when you're not asking a question. That minimizes the noise on your part, and it allows you to move around a little more easily. Best practices, a great place to get best practices for oral history recordings is the Oral History Center at the Bancroft Library in UC Berkeley. They have a wealth of resources, and 3 of them would be remote interviewing with Zoom, recording with Zoom, and storytelling from a distance, staying connected while we are apart. These are great resources if you want additional reading or additional presentations to look at. Okay, the cloud recording dashboard in Zoom. So I'm going to go through a list of settings here. In Manage Recordings linked to the dashboard, you want to store my recordings at and go in and check your storage space and delete any unused recordings you may have in advance. Only authenticated users can join meetings. You want to uncheck that. Settings. Add a timestamp to the recording. Uncheck. We don't want a timestamp. Record active speaker with shared screen. Check that. Always display participant names on their video. We uncheck that. We do not want names displayed on these videos. Record an audio-only file. Check. Save chat messages from the meeting. You want to uncheck that. We don't want chat messages to show up. Optimize the recording for third-party video editor. Check. Audio transcript. Check. And then at this point, you can click Save. And then record in the cloud. Check. Audio settings. You want to test the speaker and microphone when you've connected with the facilitator or narrator, sorry, to make sure both of you are audible. Suppress background noise. You use the default audio. Backgrounds and fillers. Okay, these are like Zoom backgrounds and blurring and things like that. Please do not use a virtual background. This is important. We need the backgrounds to be natural because, first of all, they do things to people's profiles and heads as the software tries to deal with the fact that you're moving around. And also, Zoom owns those backgrounds, some of the Zoom backgrounds, and we don't want to include those in this process. Mirror my video, you want to check that. Security, disable chat for participants, because we don't want chat. Secure or schedule your meeting, require a passcode. It's recommended, it's not required. It's a workflow thing to make sure that you have a secure meeting, that you don't have to start re-recording somewhere else. And advanced options, automatically record meeting, uncheck. The reason for that is the facilitator will open the meeting with the narrator in an unrecorded state, so you guys can sort things out, and then you start the recording when both of you are ready. Join the Zoom meeting, you want to connect, get the okay from the narrator to start recording. You click record, this is for the facilitator, and then you do a hand clap and record silence for 15 seconds. This gives us that wiggle room at the beginning of the recording, and you want to tell the narrator you're going to do this so they don't wonder why you're not saying anything. And then you want to slate the recording. So what is slate? Slating and recording is making a statement that gives a who, what, when, where, and why. So an example here is, this is Lisa Dunn interviewing Amanda Smith on Saturday, August 12, 2021 for the Women of Mind's Oral History Project. This is a remote interview. I am in Golden, Colorado. Amanda is in Seattle, Washington. Okay, that gives people everything they need to know to identify the recording, and it's important that there be a slating at the beginning of the recording. If you have to pause the recording for any reason, you reintroduce yourself and reslate the recording. Okay, so once again, this is Lisa Dunn interviewing Amanda Smith, etc. Okay, during the recording, monitor your settings for the facilitator and be alert to the timing, the narrator's position in the frame, and signals for breaks if needed. These are going to be fairly short recordings, but if a break is needed, you guys should have a signal or mention briefly, I'd like to take a break or something like that. Ending the recording. Okay, you turn off the recording, you end the meeting, close Zoom. Before you actually close Zoom though, you can go ahead and thank the narrator and make sure that you get the signed release documents sent to you, or however they need to be delivered. It is critical that we have those signed release documents from the narrator, because without them we cannot use this recording. Okay, so arrange with the narrator whether they're going to email them to you, whether they're going to mail them to you, however they're going to get them to you. You as facilitator will get an alert that the cloud recordings are available and download to a specified location that I will supply to you. So the next steps for this process are, for us, we're going to produce a transcript. We'll give a copy of the transcript to the narrator who will review it. And our follow-up for this is to thank you to the narrator. Tell them you will give them a notice of the recording's public availability and a project updates as desired. So questions, again, this is a recorded presentation, but we have a checklist for recording an oral history available on our website, Oral Histories at Minds, and this is the address. I want to thank you guys for participating in this process, and good luck and have fun.